Chad here with Eminent Performance. Kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a, I guess an overview of what's going to be coming here in the next little bit. So behind me is the X3 that I just bought, and while it's a great machine, it's had a lot of money put into it and a lot of parts thrown at it to make it a really good machine. It's not enough power for me. So this thing's going to be getting some upgrades. The next few videos, it'll probably be a few of them just because of the length of some of it. You'll see me in different clothes, maybe some things will look out of sequence. I'm doing what I can. So here's what it's going to be getting, kind of an overview. We're getting a bigger tune. We're going to be going E85 on this one, and we should be around 200-ish horsepower at the rear wheels. That is different than what a lot of places rate their tunes in their machines. Normally they rate them at crank, so this should put us around 230-ish, give or take, at the crank. It's a little bit different rating system. I prefer wheel horsepower ratings. To do that, we're going to be going with Pwer Tunes. Andy out there is setting us up with some great stuff. That should all be arriving very soon here. But I have some other things to do because we're not just going to drop a tune in this machine. Straight pipe exhaust as of right now, it's not that I don't like the sound, it's that I don't like the noise. There's been other places that have proven that you don't have to have that much of a straight pipe. The factory exhaust is not restricting it enough to really worry about it. Up until about 400 horse. We're still going to be running a pretty free-flowing exhaust, but we are definitely changing it and going to be muting that down just a little bit. So you would think, well, why don't you just buy an exhaust? I don't do things the easy way, apparently. I'm going to be building my own, so I'm bringing you guys along to show you what I'm doing with that. It's going to be kind of based off a stock exhaust, but changing the muffler side up a little bit. So it'll be an easy at-home part if you guys want to do that on your own. So Andy also asked us to go ahead and put brand new spark plugs in it. That's fine. I don't know what these look like yet, so we'll get into that. So exhaust, tune, plugs. We have to put a fuel pump in because this is a 17 machine running E85. It doesn't quite flow enough predictably to be able to support the E85 tune. So we're going to be throwing it's a 2020 Turbo R fuel pump assembly. We're going to be putting that in there to pretty much plug and play. You guys have seen that type of thing a whole bunch, but we'll get that going. So what you're seeing in here, guys, is the turbo, obviously, for this X3. And here we have a new Vband clamp because the exhaust that I have, I'm basing this off a factory exhaust. And the exhaust I have had the Vband clamp cut off because they used it for another one, which is fine. I knew that coming in. So this is probably a step you guys won't have to do if you're using your factory exhaust to make a new one. But essentially what a Vband clamp is, there are two sides that mate together. One's on the turbo right there. The other is what I have here in my hand, and they go together, and it gets a, well, for lack of better terms, a V-band that goes over this and over the part that's on the turbo, smashes the two together, and makes a good tight seal for your exhaust. It really is the best seal you can possibly get. It doesn't allow for much movement like some others, but it is the best seal that you can get. So we're going to go over here to the bench, and I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to do that. We're just going to MIG weld that together because it makes it a little bit easier. The gap's a little bit bigger than I'd want if I was going to TIG weld it. I try to get in here as tight as I can to show you guys. It's really difficult to position a camera to show this. Basically, here's the original exhaust pipe that's right here, and here is the V-band that we're going to weld on. Like I said, there's a bit of a size discrepancy difference. This is a 3-inch V-band, which is what fits the factory turbo. These exhaust pipes here are, I believe, 2.5. So because there's a slight discrepancy, essentially, little welding tip, I guess, for you guys if you're welding something, just straight Stanley knife blades. If you put it in there, it bridges that gap, holds it at nearly the same level. All the gap difference now is a Stanley knife blade thickness, and you're not having to try and balance it. It's sitting there good and solid. You can see I can poke at it and it's fine, and I can now adjust and get the gap the same all the way around so that I know my pipe is centered. The astute of you will notice in the welding footage that you would have just seen that the V-band was not pre the flex fitting. So yes, I messed up. I cut it off, re-welded it on in the correct spot with the flex fitting in there, and this is the factory muffler, factory-ish. So what I did was I split the cat off of here, gutted it, so now I have a gutted cat pipe, and this will go on obviously turbo side, muffler side. The gasket's back over there. We're going to mount that up here in a little while, waiting on the muffler still to show up. So that's kind of the update I got right now. We're going to swap out some fuel and get the new fuel pump put in. If you guys own an X3, you've probably seen this before, although my configuration is slightly different because the dash on this car is lowered. This is where the fuel pump is. Normally there's a bracket that goes over this. That is not in this car because by the time you get the dash over it, it is right on it. So yeah, dash is lowered on this car, and plus with it being shortened, it makes it pretty tough to get to it. So if I can find what I've done with my pry bar, which is the short little pry bar, we're going to spin this ring off. It is kind of the normal righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I've already had this one off, but generally they're not much harder than that. So once you kind of get it loose, if you take and push down, it should help you get it spinning. I can smell race fuel. You guys can't smell that, but it smells awesome. Okay, this one doesn't need to push down right now. There, it shot up. Okay. And try not to make a huge mess. There's the fuel level sensor. You kind of have to roll it and dump fuel in the floorboard. And I'm going to try and dump as much back in as I can. To make as little of a mess as I can. I got the whole new assembly, but you can take, let's see if we can show this right up here. There's little 3 of them all the way around. You can push those in and slide this whole bottom unit off and just disconnect your wiring, and you can replace the pump only. But there is, on this particular car being a 17 from what I'm told, you get a few more benefits out of replacing the entire assembly than just the pump. So I'm going to go grab that and we'll get that done. Right here we have a fuel pump out of a 2020 RR, Turbo RR, whatever you want to call it, car. And it will be going back in because normally if you were just going for a bigger tune, you would just drop this right back in. Because this car is getting E85, I have to evacuate that fuel. I have a transfer pump right over here off camera. I'm going to go ahead and transfer it out into cans and get going. I gotta go get another can full. Back to what we were doing. This is fuel filter. The old one, which is here, and it's still leaking fuel. You can see it's got some dirt and some crud on the bottom. The yellow is fine. That's the fuel soaked. But clean it off. I'm not saying it'll change performance, but it's good maintenance to do. Something you won't be able to see once I get it in there. If I can get it here, and Mr. Camera will focus. Focus camera. Yeah, there's an arrow right here. This arrow points basically right here at this bar, or to the outside of the side-by-side once it goes in. Now, before you actually get the final position, it can be wherever, pretty much. The O-ring is here on the old. It didn't come with a new one. So if you're just changing out the pump only in there, you won't have to do this, but since I'm changing the entire assembly, this ring for sure has to go on there, because I don't want leaking fuel. So this is how you take it back out. You put the O-ring on, feed that in first, and around the hoses. Make sure your hose is tucked in again. Up, and that just sits around it right there. Make sure it's not an O-ring per se, it's a seal or a gasket. Make sure it's tucked in there well. There we go. My arrow is facing the correct direction. I have misplaced my ring. It's over here. Okay, that's down. I'm just going to take my pry bar, give it a couple taps. We're not looking to set the world on fire with how hard we hit that, but it's in there good and tight. Not a problem. So, goes back on now. There's the fuel line, which you guys didn't see me take off because I've had it off. And there's a little locking clip that goes on right after, so it just snaps down. I have that upside down, I believe. I can't see it from my angle. Yep. And then it just snaps on, and the power for the fuel pump right there clips in. Push the little lighter gray on this one, lock in, and that's it. Fuel pump is now in. I'm gonna have to get some E85. I don't have any on hand. Obviously all my cans are full right now, so that's gonna be an issue. But there's a race this weekend. I'm gonna see if I can hand that fuel out to a racer that needs it, and then we'll fill up just through the normal spout. It'll be plenty fast enough.